Hey guys, it's Breon Bradley, your refinance specialist over here again, coming back at you. Today I wanted to do a little bit about what we call let's talk cost. Okay? Now, when we're talking about cost, there are only three things that can usually play a factor in this. Actually, there are only three things that can play a factor in this. We're going to talk about origination, we're going to talk about points, and we're going to go ahead and talk about third-party fees. Now, when we're talking about origination, that's what the lender's charging. That's what the lender's going to go ahead and charge for underwriting the loan, for setting the loan up, for getting the documentation prepared for it, and reviewing all of your documentation. So that's typically what origination is. Now, it's usually anywhere from 1% of the loan amount all the way up to as expensive as about $1,500. It's going to be the lesser of the more expensive of the two, typically. Now, different programs can dictate that. For example, FHA or VA, they can dictate their own type of costs for it. Whereas conventional, that's where the lender's going to go ahead and be in charge of it. At the same time, it also just depends on the size of your loan. That's going to go ahead and dictate the origination charges. On top of that, when we're talking about points, what are points? Well, the best way to explain what points are is, let's say we have a range of rates anywhere from 2.5 all the way to 4.5 on the scale in today's market. And let's say I log on and I see, okay, cool, I can go from a 2.5 to a 4.5 and everything's good. Well, if everybody wants that 2.5 rate, that means you're going to have to pay some extra money to go ahead and get that. Because let's say the par rate is a 3.5. It's right in the middle. Well, Brian, why would we pay extra to get down to that rate? Different people, it just depends on what your goals are. Just because you have a lower rate doesn't necessarily mean it's going to help out. But you are going to have to pay points. Those points are based off of the loan amount too. So sometimes you can qualify for a 2.5 rate, but at the end of the day, if your state says that they're charging too much for that rate, let's say that the 2.5 costs $15,000 for you to have that rate, and the state of Washington says, hey, no, we can't charge that much for an interest rate, not allowed, then you're going to run into a thing called safe harbor. Now, what that means is that they're protecting us, they're protecting the lender and the consumer, you, from being charged too much for an interest rate. Again, this all depends on what the size of your loan amount is, what kind of loan you're doing, and everything like that. But that's typically what buying down a point means, is you're going to pay extra to get down to a lower rate. On top of that, the last thing is third-party costs. This is where people actually have the biggest misconception about what cost of a loan is. When you talk about closing costs of a loan are just the first two things: origination and points, if there are any. If there aren't, then you're not talking about closing costs of a loan. Closing costs of a loan have nothing to do with third-party costs. We can't change those as a lender. Those are completely out of our hand. We can't even cover those typically because those are actually dictated by your county. So when we're talking appraisal fees, title fees, recording fees, all done by your county. Your county's the one that goes in and says, these are the standards, this is what's going to cost, and this is what it is. Now, you can shop around when you come to those things. You can't shop for an appraiser, but you can shop for a title company, you can shop for escrow companies, things like that. But at the end of the day, they're all going to be pretty close in proximity for what they're charging. Because, again, they're dictated by the county, which is a municipal governmental program that is covering all of these things. So, just remember, at the end of the day, there's only three things that make up cost: origination, points, third-party cost. Now, if you're a savvy client, one thing that you can do that'll try to help you out is you can usually try to talk a lender into covering the origination for you, and sometimes they can go ahead and cover the points. Again, this depends on what your loan side is. So before you go ahead and just assume that this can be done for you, go ahead and talk to a licensed specialist first, see if there's anything that can be done for you, and if they can't, perfect. If they can't, well, they did their best. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're keeping everything in perspective. What is this loan costing me? So really, you're asking, what kind of origination am I being charged, and what kind of points am I being charged? Outside of that, what kind of third-party costs am I being charged is kind of irrelevant because that's up to your county. You can't get mad at your lender because of it. But at the end of the day, you can still look it up on your own, or you can ask your mortgage banker to see if they can look it up for you. Either way, it's a great thing. If you like what you learned today, do me a favor, click like in the link below, or do me a favor, leave me a comment with a question specifically related to your loan. Thank you so much, and have a great day.